I always thought that if my marriage ever fell apart, I'd see it coming. That there'd be screaming matches, broken plates, slammed doors. That betrayal would announce itself with fireworks and explosions. But it didn't. It crept in like a draft through a cracked window, cold, silent, and invisible until it was already inside. It started with a mistake. Jessica's mistake. That night, I was in the garage fixing up an old shelf. Jessica had gone out with friends, and Emily was locked in her room, pretending I didn't exist as usual. I wasn't expecting anything, just a quiet night alone. But then I heard a sound, a buzz. Jessica had left her work phone on the counter in the laundry room. She never did that. That thing was practically glued to her hand, especially lately. I wouldn't have checked. I swear I wouldn't have. But then it buzzed again, and again. 5 messages, one after the other. I wiped my hands, picked it up. The screen lit up. Can't stop thinking about tonight. When can I see you again? God, I miss your body. And then the worst one. Emily said he has no clue. We're safe. My own daughter's name in the middle of this filth. My own daughter involved in whatever the hell this was. I didn't even feel my hands tighten around the phone, but my knuckles went white. The garage felt smaller, suffocating. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I had 2 choices. Sit there, let it sink in, let it break me slowly, or move. I moved. I walked straight into Emily's room without knocking. She was lying on her bed, scrolling through her phone, completely unbothered. Who is he? My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife. Emily's fingers froze. Her shoulders tensed. That was all the confirmation I needed. Who is he? I stepped closer. My hands were shaking. I didn't even know what I wanted. An answer? A confession? Or just a way to wake up from whatever nightmare this was? She didn't look at me. Dad, I threw Jessica's phone on the bed. The screen was still lit up, the words glaring at us both. Emily's face went pale. You knew, I said, voice dangerously quiet. You helped her? That's when she made her first mistake. She smirked. A small, quick, nervous smirk. Like I was some fool making a big deal out of nothing. Like I was the one who didn't understand. I saw red. You're covering for her? My voice finally cracked. Do you have any idea what this means? What she's doing to me? To us? Emily swallowed hard. It's not what you think, she mumbled, eyes darting to the door, like she was looking for an escape. Oh really? I took a step forward. Then tell me, what is it? Because right now it looks like you've been helping your mother cheat on me behind my back. Her lips pressed together. She said nothing. I didn't need her to. The first crack in the glass had formed. And I knew, deep in my gut, this was only the beginning. Silence. The kind that wraps around you, heavy and suffocating, pressing against your ribs. Emily wouldn't speak, wouldn't move. She just sat there, staring at me, like she was waiting for me to drop it. I didn't. I turned, stormed out of her room, and grabbed my keys. My hands were still shaking. My mind was running 1,000 miles a second. Every scenario, every excuse, every possible lie Jessica could have told my own daughter to make her complicit in this. I had to see it for myself. Jessica had said she was out with the girls, but I knew better now. That phone wasn't a mistake. It was hubris. She was so comfortable, so secure in my ignorance, that she thought she didn't even need to hide it anymore. I got into my car, pulled out of the driveway and called her. No answer. Of course. I dialed again. Still nothing. So I did what any man in my position would do. I tracked her. Jessica and I shared a phone plan. Family locator. She had no idea I even used it because I never did. But tonight, I opened that app like a man uncovering a secret passageway. And there she was. Not at some restaurant. Not at a bar with her friends. A hotel. My grip on the steering wheel tightened so hard my fingers ached. I didn't even think. I just drove. The hotel was about 20 minutes away, one of those sleek, modern places that business travelers used. Clean. Discreet. The kind of place you go when you don't want to be seen. I pulled into the parking lot, scanning for her car. It was there, parked neatly near the entrance. My pulse pounded in my ears. I got out, walked inside. The lobby was quiet. the receptionist barely glancing at me as I made my way toward the elevators. My hands were clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I had no idea what I was about to do. No plan. Just rage. And then, as if the universe wanted to make this hurt even more, the elevator doors slid open, and there she was. Jessica. Her hair was messy. Her makeup smudged just enough. And she wasn't alone. A man. Taller than me, younger too. Smug. He was zipping up his jacket when he saw me. I don't even remember thinking. My body just moved. 1 second, I was standing there, frozen in shock. The next, my fist collided with his face so hard he stumbled back into the elevator. The doors tried to close, but his arm shot out, stopping them. Jessica screamed. "What the hell are you doing?" She shrieked, stepping in front of him, defending him. That cut deeper than any knife ever could. "What am I doing?" I repeated, my breath ragged. "What am I doing?" I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "I should be asking you that." She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. Like I was the one making a scene. Like I was overreacting. "Oh, grow up, Michael," she snapped. "We weren't doing anything wrong." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so damn insane that I almost couldn't process it. "Really? Nothing wrong?" I pointed at the man, who was wiping blood from his lip. "Then who the hell is he?" Jessica crossed her arms. "A friend. A friend." The audacity. The sheer, unfiltered, shameless audacity of this woman. I turned to the guy. "That true, buddy? Just friends?" He said nothing. Didn't even look at me. That's when I knew. He wasn't some big love. He wasn't her soulmate. He was just another one. Jessica wasn't sorry. She wasn't panicked or guilty or scrambling for a good excuse. She was annoyed. Annoyed that I showed up. Annoyed that I interrupted her night. Annoyed that I was even making this a problem. The rage inside me boiled over, but it wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. Freezing. I exhaled slowly. "You know what, Jessica?" My voice was eerily calm. "You want to lie to my face? Fine. But at least have the decency to tell me this." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Why is Emily covering for you?" For the first time that night, she faltered. Her mask didn't crack completely, but it shifted just enough. Just enough for me to see that, underneath all that arrogance, she wasn't as untouchable as she thought she was. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned around and walked away, because I already knew one thing. This marriage was over. I drove home in silence. No radio, no thoughts, just the weight of reality pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Jessica didn't love me. That much was clear. But Emily, my own daughter, had looked me in the eye and chosen her side. I didn't know which betrayal cut deeper. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were steady again. The storm inside me hadn't passed. It had just shifted. I wasn't burning with rage anymore. I was cold, focused. I stepped into the house, the quiet wrapping around me like a noose. Emily was still in her room. I didn't go to her. Not yet. I had bigger things to deal with. Jessica wasn't home. That wasn't a surprise. She'd probably stay at the hotel tonight or maybe at his place. Maybe she thought I'd cool off, that by the time she came back we'd talk it out like some misunderstanding. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out my phone and did what I should have done months ago. I started looking through our finances. Jessica handled most of our bills. Not because I wasn't capable, because she insisted. Said she liked keeping things organized. I never questioned it. I trusted her. That trust? Gone. And within 5 minutes I found the first crack. Hotel charges. Not just tonight's stay but dozens more. Gifts. Jewelry. Lingerie from stores I'd never seen her wear at home. She was living a double life right under my nose. And I had been funding it. I felt a slow, satisfied smile stretch across my face. "Oh, Jessica, you really thought you were the smart one, didn't you?" I spent the next few hours digging deeper. Bank statements, credit card bills, social media. I wasn't just looking for evidence. I was building my revenge. And then, just after midnight, the front door clicked open. Jessica walked in like she owned the place, dropping her purse onto the counter with a sigh. Her hair was different. Tidied up, like she'd bothered to check the mirror before coming home. She saw me sitting at the table and didn't even flinch. That told me everything. She thought she still had control. Really, Michael? She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You punched a guy tonight. You do realize that's assault, right? I took a slow sip of my beer. Didn't even blink. You do realize you're a lying, cheating piece of trash, right? She rolled her eyes. Again. Unbelievable. God, you were so dramatic. She walked to the fridge, grabbed a water bottle, twisted off the cap. It's not like I did anything you haven't thought about doing. I actually laughed. Laughed. Oh, that's cute. I leaned forward. Tell me, Jess, did I ever take money from our joint account to pay for some side piece? Did I ever make our daughter lie to you? Did I ever drag our family through the mud because I couldn't keep my legs closed? Her expression flickered, just for a second. Then the smirk returned. Wow, I didn't know you had this much backbone. Kind of hot, actually. She took a sip of water, her eyes gleaming. If only you were this fun in bed, maybe I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. My vision went black. For a second, just a split second, I wanted to break something. But I didn't, because that's what she wanted. A reaction. A fight. A chance to twist things around, make herself the victim. Instead, I smiled. You're right, I said softly. I should have been more exciting. I stood up, stretched like I wasn't about to ruin her entire life. Luckily, I still have time to improve. You know, for my next wife. Jessica's smirk faltered. Yeah, that's right. You're not the only one who gets to move on. I grabbed my phone and turned the screen toward her. Her bank statements, the hotel bookings, the receipts, all of it. Her face drained of color. You see, Jessica, I continued, while you were out having fun, I was home doing some research. Turns out, you're not as careful as you think. And since I've been paying for half your little adventures, guess what? I tapped the screen. That makes it marital waste. And that means, sweetheart. I smiled wider. You owe me. Jessica's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I leaned in. Lowered my voice to a whisper. Hope your boy toy has money, Jess. Because you're gonna need it. Then, I walked past her. Heading upstairs. She didn't follow me. Because for the first time in our marriage, she was the one losing. Jessica didn't come upstairs that night. I heard her pacing in the kitchen. Heard the fridge open and close. The clink of a bottle against the counter. She was thinking. Plotting. Trying to find a way out. I didn't care. I slept like a baby. By the time morning rolled around, I was already dressed, coffee in hand, sitting at the dining table when she finally slithered in. She looked like hell. Hair messy, dark circles under her eyes. She had always been so sure of herself. That was Jessica's thing. The perfect liar. The master manipulator. Always in control. Not anymore. Morning, cheater, I said casually, sipping my coffee. She scowled. Really, Michael? She grabbed a mug and poured herself a cup, like we were two normal people having a normal morning. Like she wasn't a snake in my house. What, are you just gonna throw childish insults at me now? I grinned. No. I was thinking of something a little more productive. I slid a stack of papers across the table toward her. Jessica eyed them suspiciously before picking them up. As soon as she realized what they were, her face froze. Divorce papers. Already? She scoffed. But her voice wasn't as confident as usual. Wow, didn't take you long, did it? Unlike you, Jess, I don't waste time. I leaned back. Sign them. She tossed the papers back onto the table with a smirk. You think I'm just gonna roll over and let you win? Please. She took a sip of coffee, eyes locked onto mine. You won't divorce me, Michael. You don't have the guts. I laughed. Jessica, you were at a hotel last night with another man. I punched him in the face. I think I have the guts. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. You don't even have proof. Oh? I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward her. Her own text messages. The ones I had sent to my email last night. Screenshots of every single disgusting message she sent to him. Her jaw clenched. She wasn't smirking now. You think you're so damn smart, don't you? She muttered. I don't think, I said, standing up. I know. She exhaled sharply, her grip tightening on the mug like she wanted to throw it at my head. You're being irrational. What about Emily? There it was. The real battle. I sat back down. What about Emily? Jessica crossed her arms, tilting her head like she was dealing with a misbehaving child. You know she'll hate you if you do this. That hit me in the chest, but I didn't let it show. She saw my hesitation and pounced. She's on my side, Jessica said smoothly, sliding into her usual role of puppet master. You know that, right? She's a teenager, Michael. She thinks I'm the fun one. She trusts me. She'll believe whatever I tell her. And when we go to court, she leaned forward. Who do you think she'll choose? I stared at her, and for the first time in my life, I saw exactly who Jessica was. She wasn't just a cheater. She wasn't just a liar. She was a user, a manipulator, someone who had never loved anyone but herself. She was willing to use our daughter as a weapon just to hurt me. I let out a slow breath, sat back, and then I smiled. You really think you've won, don't you? I said softly. Jessica didn't blink. I know I have. I shook my head, pulled my phone out again, and placed it face down on the table. You don't know everything, Jess. Her eyes flickered to the phone, and for the first time, she hesitated. Good. I tapped the screen and pressed play. A voice filled the kitchen. I told you he doesn't know anything. Emily's helping. Okay? Stop worrying. Jessica's own voice. The conversation she had in the kitchen that night, when she thought I wasn't listening. I had recorded it. Jessica's face went ghost white. I paused the audio, took another sip of coffee. I wonder what a judge would think of that, I mused. Using your own daughter to cover up an affair? Seems like bad parenting, don't you think? She was silent. Not smug. Not arrogant. Not rolling her eyes. Just silent. She knew. She knew I had her. I slid the divorce papers toward her again. Sign them, Jessica. Her fingers trembled. But this time, she didn't push them away. Jessica didn't touch the papers. Not yet. She just sat there, her face pale. Her fingers still curled around the coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. For the first time since this nightmare began, she looked afraid. You recorded me? She finally whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I tilted my head. You thought you could use Emily against me, I said. So I made sure to have something that proves exactly what kind of mother you are. Jessica exhaled sharply through her nose, her hands gripping the edge of the table. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to twist, to spin, to salvage whatever power she thought she had left. You think that recording means anything? She snapped suddenly, latching onto anger like a drowning woman grasping for a rope. Emily isn't some little kid, Michael. She's 16. Even if you play that in court, they won't care. She's old enough to decide who she wants to live with. I just smiled. Oh, I know. Jessica's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I leaned back, exhaling like I was bored. It means I had a little chat with Emily last night, after you slithered back to your boyfriend's hotel room. Jessica froze. You're lying, she whispered. I grinned. Am I? Truth was, I had stayed up for hours last night, just waiting for her to come home, for another fight, another round of lies. But when she didn't, I had done something else instead. I had gone to Emily's room. She had been lying on her bed, eyes glued to her phone, headphones in. But when I opened the door, she glanced up, and for the first time in weeks, she actually looked a little guilty. She knew I had caught her. She just didn't know how much. Emily, I had said, leaning against the doorframe. I know about Mom. She had flinched. A tiny, barely noticeable movement, but I saw it. I know you covered for her, I continued, my voice calm. Not angry, not accusing, just steady. I know you lied to me. She swallowed, eyes flickering back to her phone. Dad, I had held up a hand, cutting her off. I don't care about that right now, I said. I just want one thing from you. The truth. Emily had hesitated. I could tell she was conflicted, like some part of her knew what she did was wrong. But she had been too deep into Jessica's lies to fully grasp what it meant. So I had hit her with the one thing Jessica never had. Honesty. Your mother doesn't love me, Emily. My voice had been softer then, almost tired. She hasn't for a long time, and I'm done pretending she does. Emily had bit her lip. You don't have to pick sides, I had continued. I won't ever ask that from you. But I need to know something. Did she tell you to lie to me? Or did you do it on your own? That was when Emily had broken. She had shaken her head quickly, voice small. She told me she had whispered. She said you'd just make it worse if you found out. That you'd get mad. And it was easier if I just covered for her. My own daughter. Jessica had used her as a human shield to keep her dirty little secret safe. That had been the final nail in the coffin. But back in the kitchen, I wasn't going to hand Jessica that information just yet. So I just smiled and repeated, I talked to Emily. Jessica's jaw clenched. She knew. She knew. The panic was setting in now. I could see it. The slow realization that everything she had built, every lie, every manipulation, every smug little power move, was crumbling around her. What do you want? She finally asked, voice sharp. I folded my hands on the table. Simple. You sign the papers. No custody fight, no drawn-out divorce battle. You take what's yours, I take what's mine, and we walk away. Jessica scoffed. You think I'm just going to... I flipped the phone back over, tapped the audio file, and let her own voice fill the kitchen again. Emily's helping. Okay? Stop worrying. Jessica's face contorted. She hated hearing herself say it. Hated that she had been caught. I pressed pause. Sign them, Jessica, I repeated, voice calm. Silence stretched between us. Then, slowly, her fingers curled into fists. You bastard, she hissed. I grinned. Says the woman who just spent the night with another man. Jessica grabbed the pen. She flipped to the last page, hands shaking, and scribbled her name in quick, angry strokes. When she was done, she shoved the papers toward me so hard they nearly slid off the table. Happy now? I picked them up, scanned the signature, then smiled. Ecstatic. Jessica stood up so fast her chair scraped against the tile. You think you won, Michael? She snapped. Fine. Enjoy your stupid little revenge. But don't think for a second Emily's going to want to stay with you after this. She'll hate you for this. Forever. I let out a slow breath. Maybe I admitted. Or maybe she'll finally see you for what you really are. Jessica's eyes burned with rage. She didn't say another word. She just stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door so hard the walls shook. I exhaled. It was over. But there was still one last thing I had to do. Jessica thought she had lost the battle. She had no idea I was about to win the war. The second she stormed upstairs, I picked up my phone and sent a message to my lawyer. She signed. Let's finalize everything. Then, I grabbed the divorce papers, tucked them into a folder, and placed them neatly on the counter. The kitchen was eerily silent now, except for the faint hum of the fridge. I had won. But I wasn't done yet, because Jessica still thought she could manipulate Emily. She thought she could use our daughter as a shield, turn her against me, play the long game. She had no idea that I had already taken the queen off the board. Emily was still in her room when I knocked. Come in, she mumbled. I stepped inside. She was sitting cross-legged on her bed, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me, her fingers hesitated over the screen, but she didn't say anything. I shut the door behind me. We need to talk. Emily exhaled through her nose. Dad, I already told you no, I cut in, my voice steady. You didn't. She sighed and tossed her phone onto the bed. Fine. Talk. I sat down on the edge of her desk chair, watching her carefully. I'm divorcing your mom. No reaction. Just a slight twitch in her jaw. I continued. She signed the papers this morning. It's done. Still nothing. But that's not why I'm here. Emily finally looked at me. Then why? I leaned forward. Because I need to know something. And I need you to be honest with me. Just this once. Emily swallowed. Okay. I exhaled slowly. Did you lie for her because you wanted to? Or because she made you? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Her fingers twisted in the fabric of her hoodie. I waited. Then finally she cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she pressed her palms against them like she could physically push them back in. I didn't want to, she whispered. She told me you'd get mad. That you'd leave. That everything would fall apart if I didn't help her. My stomach twisted. Of course she did. Jessica didn't just cheat on me. She poisoned our daughter's trust in me. Turned me into the villain before I even knew there was a fight. I took a deep breath. Emily, listen to me. I don't care that you covered for her. I'm not mad at you. I just needed to know the truth. Emily wiped her nose on her sleeve. So, what happens now? That was the question, wasn't it? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I'm leaving, I said simply. I've already started looking for an apartment. Your mom will stay here. Emily blinked. You're just leaving? I nodded. But you get to decide where you stay. Her throat bobbed. And if I pick mom? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Then I'll respect that. Emily studied me for a long moment, her tear-streaked face full of uncertainty. I could see the war inside her, the guilt, the fear, the loyalty she had been conditioned to have toward her mother. But I also saw something else. Hesitation. A crack in Jessica's control. I stood up, ruffling her hair gently like I used to when she was little. You don't have to decide now, I told her. But whatever you choose, just make sure it's your choice. Not hers. Then, I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. Because for the first time since this all started, I had already won. I started packing that same afternoon. Jessica didn't say a word. Not when she heard the clatter of suitcases being pulled from the closet. Not when I walked past her with armfuls of clothes. Not even when I unplugged my phone charger from the wall and tucked it into my bag. She just sat at the kitchen table, gripping her coffee cup like it was an anchor in a storm. She knew. She had spent years thinking she was untouchable. That I would always be there, always be predictable. That she could lie, cheat, manipulate, and still come out on top. She had never imagined a reality where I would be the one walking away. But she still had one card left to play. And she played it that night. Emily had stayed in her room all day, barely speaking, lost in whatever battle she was fighting inside her own head. I didn't push her. This was her war as much as it was mine, and she had to come to her own conclusions. But as I was stuffing the last of my clothes into a duffel bag, my bedroom door slammed open. Jessica stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face a mask of ice. So that's it? She snapped. You're just going to walk away? Abandon your family? I zipped up my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. You mean the family you destroyed? She scoffed. Oh, get over yourself, Michael. People cheat. Marriages fall apart. It happens. I stared at her. Unbelievable. You don't feel even a little guilty, do you? I asked, genuinely curious. Not for what you did to me. Not for what you did to Emily. Jessica smirked. Emily's fine. That was it. That was the moment. Something inside me just snapped. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice so only she could hear. Emily is not fine, Jessica. She's confused. She's hurt. Because the woman who was supposed to protect her used her as a damn pawn. Jessica's smirk faltered. She won't hate me for leaving, I continued. She'll hate you for turning her into a liar. Jessica's jaw clenched. You really think you're the better parent? I stared her down. I don't think it. I know it. Jessica's breath hitched. Just for a second. Then she scoffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Whatever. Go. You'll come crawling back when you realize you can't handle being alone. I smiled. Funny. I was about to say the same thing about you. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't let her see even an ounce of anger. Because I knew something she didn't. Jessica was terrified. Not of losing me. No, that ship had sailed the second she let another man touch her. She was terrified of losing control. For the first time in her life, she had no leverage. No power. No hold over me. And deep down, she knew. Emily was slipping away from her too. Because I hadn't just left Jessica. I had left her lies. And sooner or later, Emily would too. I didn't look back. Not when I tossed my bags into the car. Not when I pulled out of the driveway for the last time. Not even when I saw a shadow move behind Emily's window, watching me leave. Jessica thought she won by keeping the house. She had no idea she was about to lose everything. A week passed. Then two. I settled into my new apartment. Small, nothing fancy, but mine. No more walking on eggshells. No more paranoia. No more sleeping next to a woman who had been living a double life. And then, the phone calls started. Not from Jessica. From Emily. At first, they were short. Just one-word answers. Hey, Dad? You good? I kept it simple. No pressure. No pushing. Just waiting. And then, one night, she called. And this time, she stayed on the line. I hate her. She whispered. I closed my eyes, exhaling. I knew this was coming. What happened? I asked. Emily hesitated. Then she broke. She thinks I'm stupid, she snapped. Like I don't see her texting that guy. Like I don't notice when she sneaks out. She barely talks to me anymore. Just complains about you. Acts like I'm supposed to be on her side. I leaned back, rubbing my forehead. And are you? Silence. Then softly, no. A long pause. Then Emily sniffled. I don't want to live with her anymore, Dad. My heart clenched. I had told myself I wouldn't push her, wouldn't make her choose. But deep down I had prayed, that one day, she would see Jessica for what she really was. And now, here we were. You don't have to, I told her. Not if you don't want to. She exhaled shakily. She's gonna be so pissed. I smiled. Let her be. Emily let out a tiny laugh. The first real one I'd heard in months. And in that moment, I knew. Jessica had finally lost. 3 weeks later, Emily moved in with me. Jessica threw a fit. Screamed. Threatened. Tried to guilt trip her. But Emily was done. And the best part? When we went to court, the recording of Jessica bragging about using Emily. The judge did care. I got full custody. Jessica? She got everything she deserved. Nothing. No house. No power. No one left to manipulate. Just herself and the wreckage of the life she burned down. And me? I walked away with my freedom. And the one thing Jessica could never take from me. Emily.